This is a long epiphytical root that's absorbing nutrients off of the fern. And then they don't flower unless they think they're gonna die. So in the right environment, the plant will just grow larger and larger. The largest one in the world is 1 acre, Costa Rica. But if they get stressed out, then they'll trigger flowering. And so we stress our plants into flowering here. And then you've got a 12-week window where they'll flower, but they bloom.
And how do you stress them?
Cold is what we use. We're at 1,800 feet altitude, and so the cold, it'll drop below 55 degrees, and that'll trigger them into flowering. And then they'll have 12 weeks where they'll cycle through opening all the buds. Once it begins, it's about a 6-hour countdown, so it opens and closes. So that's your window to pollinate it. And yeah, there's no pollinator in the wild, so they're all pollinated by hand. And then once you pollinate them, it takes 9 months.
And how do you pollinate them?
Oh, it's complicated. Basically, there's an anther with an anther cap that has a pollen sac suspended, and there's ovaries down at the bottom. And then there's a hollow tube that runs parallel to the anther, is lined with hairs that will draw the pollen into the ovaries. The problem is, on top of the tube is a valve called a rostellum, but it functions like a lid. It blocks pollen from getting into that tube. So the method we used was invented by a 12-year-old slave named Edmond Malbrouille in Madagascar 200 years ago. It's still used today. You take a toothpick, you lift up the valve, that displaces the pollen sac. You squeeze the pollen underneath the valve and pop the sac. And then when you let go, the pollen is stuck to the underside of the lid and it closes. And if you do that without crushing the tube, the pollen can be drawn down into the ovaries. And you'll know within 2 days, 48 hours later, if the flower is still hanging onto the stem, then it's a successful